It's the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. And man, am I glad to be with you this Monday, because after recording the podcast last Monday, my face hit the ground and it didn't get back up until, today, really. I felt better yesterday, but man, I was out. And I know last week was a hell of a week. I managed to go live in my Patreon. I was really, really sick. I haven't slept that much in forever. I don't get sick very often, and I'm okay now. So, no fever, but man, it was chills and fatigue. So we're back up and running. We've got another heck of a week coming up because, it's 2025. And what I really want to do with you this week is help you move through the energy. I have a lot to cover. We have another Astrologers Roundtable, and it's an hour long. So I've edited a clip to put in here, and then I'm going to put the whole thing in the Patreon for all members, both Vibin, which is free, and supporting members, so you can get to know Shelby and Damien and Susie, because they read for me at wokeastrology.com. I've opened my books, but I'm going to talk about that in the monologue. And why? Because I have a very special workshop coming up in October for people who own businesses. This is something where you're a consultant, a coach, an astrologer, a reader. You already have something moving, but maybe you don't have a team in place yet and you need to leverage where you're at. Or if you do have a team, you still need to know what your best timing is, so you save time and money by not launching at the wrong time, etc. I'm going to teach you the art of making moves by the moon for your business. This is business specific. It's not for career. It's for business people. So I'll talk about that more, why it's such a great thing to know and what can help you, including knowing not to worry if you happen to be out for the count and sick like I was all week. I was hoping to teach that in September, but I wasn't going to be able to give people enough lead time. So we're going to do that in October, as well as the Astrology of the Child lecture series. So I'll talk about that in the next segment. Again, we're moving towards the equinox and the new moon in Virgo at 29 degrees. A lot of people are talking about that as the eclipse. That eclipse is only visible, and I say only, but it's only visible in Antarctica, New Zealand, the whole of New Zealand, and a little bit of Australia. And I'll talk about eclipses and why the happenings in the United States were not the eclipse, and it really was the full moon. That was a doozy of a full moon, eclipse or no eclipse. It was in a trine with Jupiter. And I think there's too many people who know enough about astrology to be dangerous that don't quite understand how very powerful the moon is in our daily lives. So we're going to be talking about the moon a whole lot on this episode. So whether we're going to work together, I found out what I do with you guys. Sometimes I'm in the shower with you. So if we're in the shower, if we're driving to work, if we're taking the kids to school, if we're driving home, on the train, folding laundry. I know a lot of people save their boring chores for listening to the podcast. I keep you company with that. That's great. Let's get those towels folded together. Or if we're working out at the gym, doing a hot girl walk or hitting the treadmill, whatever we're doing, just no heavy lifting, please, because my back is still sore from being sick. But anyway, get your tea, get your coffee, get your matcha, get your H2O. We've got a jam-packed episode. There's so much I want to cover this week. Some of it really is going into the Patreon. Like I said, the full Astrologers Roundtable goes into Patreon for both free and paid members this week. I'll put a clip of it in here, just a juicy bit. Big shout out to Susie Evolutionary. She is a phenomenal astrologer. She's also a trauma-informed tarot reader as well. So she's trauma-informed. She's certified in that. And she does a great job supporting people in their healing journeys and planning their movements in life. And she does it with tarot as well. I've said yes to her teaching a trauma-informed tarot class. And you don't have to know anything about tarot in order to take that class. You can check it out in the links below. Patrons, I'll be putting in a special discount for you guys, that if you want to sign up for her class on woke astrology, you can do that. Another shout out to somebody is John Edward. I don't know if you guys know who John Edward, the psychic medium, is. He was the host of the show Crossing Over and also a New York Times bestseller. John is a friend of mine, and we met through TikTok. He found me. It was trippy. I was like very overwhelmed, but he's a wonderful human being. I've had his daughter, Olivia Edward, on the podcast. She's an amazing actress as well as astrologer. And he has a book out called Chasing Evil. Chasing Evil. And I've been listening to the audiobook, and it's not just his book. It is also Robert Hillard's book. And Robert Hillard is telling the story of how he met John and how John helped him solve some very amazing cases when Robert was with the FBI. And it's more than a whodunit book, and I think it does a real disservice to Robert and to John to just say, oh, it's about solving crimes or solving, serial killer murders or preventing assassinations, things like that. There is some thriller stuff in there. But what I've been finding, I'm halfway through it right now, and this is not a sponsored post. I am literally shouting it out because, again, John is a friend. He's a wonderful man. He's everything you think he is. He's a good husband. He's a good father. And he is a very, very, very talented and dedicated world server. And that's something I admire in my friends. Anyway, what I find most compelling in this book is the story of how Robert grows in his understanding of spirituality and in being in tune with himself, and how his relationship with John built that. And it's a beautiful story of how people can work together who are seemingly so different, even though they actually have a lot in common, but they come from different walks of life. And you would think, oh, that's not even peanut butter and chocolate. That's more like salsa and Chianti or something. I don't know. I'm trying to make it up. But anyway, if you're looking for a compelling listen or a compelling read, Chasing Evil is very good. I gave a much deeper insight in a segment. I was going to put it on here, but it ended up being like 45 minutes. So it will go into the patron-only podcast. Patrons, you're getting loved up after my sick week last week. And again, this podcast is 100% listener supported by the patrons of the Awake Space. I know some people who are listeners don't like to hear that. Being a patron can cost as little as $5 a month, and it goes up to $33 a month, depending on the depth of information you're seeking. You never go short in my Patreon. This is what supports my work in the world, and whether you're a Vibin patron for free or you are a supporting patron, you are so appreciated. That's why last Tuesday, and I don't remember the day. Okay, it's like I have blurry memories of that day. I was sick, and I got my phone started blowing up as people got the big news of the assassination of Charlie Kirk to me, that he had been shot. We didn't even know what his status was. I hadn't seen anything about it, and I'm going to be honest, I barely knew who he was. Okay, and so I'm not gonna lie, the more I found out, the more I was like, And so I did a live stream for all patrons. That was free patrons as well as paid patrons. It is up as a recording, and you will hear the moment by moment information. What I was trying to do was keep the tone down, stop any panic, stop any speculation. I'm like, I really, really hate conjecture. Like where people have to make up stories about what's going on without any facts. That drives me nuts. Okay, pardon the tism, but it's just a fairy tale if you're coming up with your theories, right, with no review. Like there was very little information, and so it's kind of an interesting record of the moment. If you're curious, you can check it out at com/the awake space. Check the show notes. Today is the first day I feel human. I was feeling more human over the last couple of days, but today is the first day I'm not in my studio because I was like, I don't want to spend the night in the studio. I just really don't. I have a little like couch I sleep on if I spend the night because I can't drive at night. So if I'm recording super late, I usually spend the night in the studio. And I'm like, no, not today. So anyway, all I will say is I warned everybody about forced conformity in 2025, regardless of what side of the political aisle people are on. And I think you're really seeing evidence of that coming from both left and right in the United States. The idea of either you can't have an off-color opinion about something from the right, but from the left saying you must have a feeling that you don't, forcing people to feel a certain way. I don't know. I grew up in a different America than the America we live in today, so it's a little bit strange to me as I watch this forced conformity roll out on any side. That segment I did talking about chasing evil, I talked about the universe and frequencies and the idea of good and evil and how that operates and how we can tune our consciousness in a better direction for ourselves, a more preferred direction where our life is maybe a little more pleasant, even in adverse circumstances, and gave some examples of things that helped me when I was a young person going through a great deal of trauma. Off the charts. I don't say exactly what happened because in my experience, people tend to only focus on the harm and not on the healing and where my life is today. And I also don't like to trigger people. Okay. But I can tell you healing is possible and we can navigate unfathomable circumstances because human beings are designed to deal with the density of this planet. It is not about perfection, nor are we being punished by being here. Those types of tropes and thought memes are kind of why we're in the mess we're in, and that's why the crisis is building for resolution. It's not going to resolve anytime soon, certainly not in 2025 or 2026. Probably a little bit within our lifetimes. It'll be a lot more comfortable later down the road within my lifetime, and I will be 60 in 4 years. Okay, so just so you know, I expect within my lifetime to see a not a unity, but maybe some harmony. So there's that. And if you're interested in that, you can check it out. That'll be for patrons at the $5 level and up. I'll probably put that segment separate from the patron only because we got more there too. My What's in the Headlines goes into Patreon. It is sponsored by the deep divers and horoscope members that get the Awake Space magazine. That's up. So that's our business for today. Oh, guys. So let's talk about the moon. So the moon sheds no light of its own, and it's the closest celestial body to the planet. And it actually has causality on the planet, meaning, how it governs the tides and the impact on human behavior. Anyone in healthcare, anyone who works in a psych ward, anyone who does psychiatric care, anyone who's a firefighter, a police officer, paramedic, you all know the full moon, you can clock it. And new moons are starts. So the full moon, which was an eclipse, 85% of the world saw it as a lunar eclipse, but not most of North America, Central America, and South America. What we had was a full moon in Pisces, and Pisces is expansive energy. It doesn't really have boundaries, so that's a big full moon, but it was also trying Jupiter, its traditional ruler in Cancer, which is a lot of feelings. So it was extra. And so I got some comments on the Tiki-Taki, and people are saying, no, I felt the eclipse. And one person ended up in the ER and the psych ward. And I was like, no, it was the full moon. They're like, a moon can't do that. I'm like, the moon can. That's why I teach how to govern your consciousness. Not that it's a blame. Like when I had CPTSD, there were certain moons I had to really watch out for it because I was working on governing my consciousness. Okay. And I knew it would be more challenging on certain moon phases or signs than others. The moon governs kind of our day to day. I see it as an activator. Okay. When it comes to transits, like it'll kick off things. And I know you're curious about the astrology of Tuesday, September 10th. At 2:20, which was the time of the shooting, the moon was exactly opposite Mars and making a square with Jupiter. That was a lot of energy, and I had predicted that we would see a lot of violence in the headlines of different kinds, and there was a lot of violence of different kinds that day. That story took over the news, but there were quite a few things. There were more than one school shooting. There was, I think, 3 that day. We don't hear about every act of violence, not even mass violence, okay, in the news. The news cherry picks what it talks about, and it's manipulating emotions. So that's something really important to remember. You can hear more about that in the Patreon only. So with the new moon coming up on the 22nd at 29 degrees Virgo, this is the final chapter of that new moon sandwich that we've had. Virgo represents our day-to-day. It represents our schedule, our workaday life, the jobs we do in the physical, and our health, because what we do on the day-to-day impacts our health, right? And our health impacts the people around us. It is the house of work, health, and service. That really is your job is found in the 6th. It's really not found in the 10th. Your reputation and where you're elevated is 10th house, okay? Not really career. It's your workaday life. It's what pays the bills, okay? Your vocation versus your avocation or your calling. So in order to have a workaday life, you have to have schedules. Capricorn kind of represents infrastructure, and Virgo represents the systems. We have had one new moon in Virgo, and we're having a second new moon in Virgo. So we started at 0 degrees, and now we're ending at 29 degrees. And I'm going to say this is going to kick off a whole new system. As far as the eclipse, again, it's visible in Antarctica, New Zealand, and a slice of eastern Australia down towards the south. Or is it Western Australia? Might be Western Australia. The tip near New Zealand. Pardon my ignorance. I get turned around because it's upside down from me. Because I think in a round globe, and I'm like, east, west, where? Anyway, the part nearest New Zealand. You Aussies can make fun of me. Feel free. Matilda does all the time. But anyway, so I expect more weather. New Zealand, please watch out for seismic activity. Be a little prepared. I've had my eye on you. And Antarctica, I think we're going to see more rapid sea ice melt. I've always said, as much as everybody's worried about politics, I'm worried about climate change, and the politicians, in my opinion, are being fools. All right, so we're going to have to mitigate. So keep your eye on the weather. For the rest of the world, this new moon is definitely kicking off new systems, and it's happening right before the equinox. And I learned about the equinox as a kid because my grandfather was a commercial fisherman in the summertime, and he would always say, don't take your boat out at the equinoxes, there's bad weather. So I'm like, okay, I'll never take a boat out. So I don't own a boat to take out, but if I had one, we wouldn't be going out on it. Because the equinox is a seasonal change, and weather can come out of nowhere. And this could be some big storms that pop up, but I think we'll also see some big conflict when it comes to politics as well. It will be interesting. So I'll be talking about what's in the headlines in the Patreon. What can you do with this new moon? And again, on the Patreon only podcast, I'll run through how to set your intentions, but just a general overview. Set your intentions in such a way that you're able to move forward with systems in mind. Okay, a lot of times we think of outcomes when we set our intentions. I want the money. I want the job. I want the guy. I want the gal. I want the them. I want the car. I want the food. I want the house. I need this dream thing. With this big new moon at 29 degrees of Virgo, you got to be a little more systems oriented. So you want to set your intentions for being able, like, I have everything I need figured out so I can receive the money I want to get. I have my payment gateways set up. I have my bank accounts in line. I have a system to pay. If you're wanting to pay off debt, well, I have systems in place. I have this organized. If you're looking at work, I'm creating better communication lines with my coworkers and the chain of command. I've created a great spreadsheet to kind of show proof of our work on our collaborative projects, that kind of thing. If you're setting intentions around your health, it would be because it can be hard. You're like, well, I want to feel good, but I don't know where to start, right? Like maybe you're having to advocate for yourself for the first time, or maybe you're tired of advocating for yourself. And so you might want to have a system and a checklist that you bring into the doctor. Like, yes, I've seen this specialist, this thing, because they may not even look at the chart, right? So you want to make sure you have a list that you have set up. You have a system for communications with medical professionals. Am I saying you're going to get sick? No. Okay. But also, speaking of being sick, I think our healthcare system is going to obviously be under siege, and we're going to see it hit it's going to strain at the seams after this new moon. In fact, the Virgo full moon during Pisces season is probably going to see some real strain on healthcare. So you might want to get anything taken care of now and not put it off. That would be a good use of that energy. I'll go into more detail on that on the patron-only podcast. Mostly just because I could talk forever today. There's so much happening. Eastern Europe is going to heat up this week, and it's going to probably look a little bit scary. People wonder why I smile and I chuckle, because I got accused of taking delight in these scenarios. No, I don't. I don't take delight in it. I don't like it any more than you like it. It's a nervous tick. It's a way of managing stress. I don't like to deliver bad news. I still say we won't see nuclear weapons, even though there are delivery systems that are capable of carrying those warheads. I think it'll still be conventional. But I think we're going to see things really start to heat up. And you're going to see people blaming the solar eclipse. It's not that. There's just a lot of energy happening now, because Mars is making its end of its transit. It's at 25 degrees as I record this in Libra. How's that? Libra's been throwing hands. Oh, big shock. I told you that Mars in Libra is not passive. Not in the least. It needs an activation to help, or it needs collaboration. So that's why you're seeing these groups and factions happening with Mars and Libra. It's at the last 5 degrees. So Mars is about to move into Scorpio. And October's going to be a lot. and can you get through it? Of course we do. We get through this. Okay? We get through this. And historically, it's still not the worst time on the planet. Okay? It's still not the worst time on the planet. Yet. No, that was a joke. Okay. We've got to guard our consciousness. Don't let yourself get manipulated by very confident content creators on anywhere, like whether it's Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or, I don't know, Snapchat, whatever, or a podcast. Don't let people get you wound up. They honestly, 90% of the time, have no more information than you. They're just confident in their speaking. And because we haven't taught critical thinking in decades, because They didn't really teach it much when I was in school either, and I'm 56, so just saying. Um, Anybody who's confident, has a strong opinion, can sound like they're speaking facts and spitting facts when in fact they're opining. Okay, and there's a big difference between opinions and facts. As I said in the Patreon, now is probably not the time to have controversial hot takes. Now is a little more time to be more cautious in how you speak. I'm not saying avoid topics, but just be mindful of the language you use and the words you use, because that's going to make a difference. I didn't get any content violations and community violations on TikTok with the new guidelines change, because I've been very cautious about how I word things. That wasn't out of fear. That is out of my desire to continue to be of service. It's still the place I have the biggest megaphone, and I want to be able to reach people, and not just the people who follow me, but reach new people. So never be afraid to share my stuff. I'm okay with that. Please share my videos. Please share my stuff with your friends. I don't need to be the best kept secret, because there's a lot of tools people can use to move through these interesting times. And we really were made for these times. You were born with everything you need to meet every opportunity and every challenge. But it takes effort, it takes time, and it takes practice. And it needs support as well. None of us are meant to do this all by ourselves. It's an inside job, but having support through having counselors or therapists or astrologers or tarot readers, but qualified ones and good ones, not just somebody offering a $10 reading. And it doesn't mean the $10 readings aren't good, but that person may not have the confidence in their skills to help you navigate it. Okay. But you both might learn something together. Alrighty. So I'm going to do some patron shout outs. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I think may come up this week and how to navigate it. And then we'll do, what are we going to do? Then we'll do a good chunk of the Astrologers Roundtable, but I'm not going to put the full hour up here. You'll have to come over to Patreon to check it out. Okay, patrons, this is your shout outs. Every single week, I do patron shout outs to thank the patrons of the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. We meet up in the Awake Space on Patreon. I do live streams there quite a lot. I don't have a schedule. Okay, so sometimes I do them in the morning, sometimes I do them at night. I try to hit it because we are a global community, and it isn't just somewhere where you come to ingest a lot more of my content, which, trust me, there's plenty there. But we also come together in community, especially when we have busy news weeks or busy days, things going on in the world, even half dead and sick. I will show up and just bring us together in community to move through it together, so people don't feel alone in this. I think there's so many more of us than there are the others. And the one thing that's different is we all feel alone or disenfranchised or the single blue dot in a red district. I hear that a lot, except I have clients that will come from the same city that would get along very well if only they would meet. I have to hold confidentiality, though, so I can't just run around telling people, hey, you should know so-and-so without permission. That's why we have a community in the Awake Space. And we can be serious, we can be spiritual, and we can be really, really naughty and fun. So, all right, let me find our newest patrons. I just have to get to that part on my page here. There's my phone. But look, my hand disappears. Oh, there it is. I'm using a background because I am not in the studio. All right. We've got our newest patrons this week are Marzi, Stephanie, Rob, Nikki, Mina, Tamara, Patience, Bruxa, Manny, Linnea, Essa, Jordan, Amanda, Riley, Ashley, Kai, Patricia, iced matcha latte. I see what your beverage of choice is. Five Dream Flux. Gosh, look at those usernames. Katie Ross, Shanisha, Amy S, Marissa, Rumination Redacted. Ooh, the alliteration. Kylene Dolan, Mel, Joyce, Jason, Nicole, I'm Amber, Amanda, Flora, Baker Non-Baker, who I got to chat with in one of the live streams, Angela, Heidi, Serena, Danette, Heather, Cavaldi, Megan, Maria, Jody, Amber, Gloria, Kim, Leah, Cleisha, Ori, T. White, Stephanie, Nikki, Emily, Stabby Unicorn, Amber, Marilisa, Paige, Jen, Denisha, Ethan, Lindsay, Flappy Beaver, Lauren, Brooke, Deetta 310, Andrea, Divine, Sammy, Pre, Lisa, Bailey, Sonia, Jewel Sphere, Summer, Stephanie, Kelsey, Shreen, Morgan, Jessica, Catherine Marie, Jackie, S.A. Ortiz, Tea in the Graveyard, Elizabeth, Vale, Narkara, Billy, Vanessa, Jet, Alex, Hope, Jenny, Ariel, Megan, Katrina, Carmen, Morgan, Paradox Priestess, The Heathen Equestrian, Hillary, Danny, Cynthia, Melody, Amanda, Carmen, Heather, Albano, Joanna, or Jonna, Glitch Paladin, Sasha, Jackie, Caitlin, Vilma, Jorge, Emily, Jacqueline, Star Sister, and Cameron. Some of your old names coming back. Welcome back. So I read it out every week and it gives our newest members, but the list lasts for about 3 weeks. It depends on the cycle of joining. It just keeps going. So thank you so much for sponsoring my work in the world. I really appreciate you. And there's good stuff coming up in the Patreon. So hold tight. It's a good one this week. And I promise on staying healthy. So, hey, before we get into the Astrologers Roundtable, which I think you're really going to enjoy our conversation, I wanted to talk a little bit about the two classes that are coming up that I'm teaching. So, I'm teaching Astrology of the Child, which is a lecture series. This is a little different. This isn't so much technique and mechanical, it's the philosophies and information around how we look at children's charts, look at child development and astrology, and how to support children as adults in their lives using astrology, kind of a what to do, what not to do on that. And it's useful for anyone. I mean, we've all been children, okay? Whether you're a parent, a grandparent, an auntie, an uncle, if you're just looking at your own process of how you grew up and making sense of that. I'm not doing so much synastry between parent and child with this one. It's more around understanding the child development and how that reflects in the astrology and how we like grow in our interpretation of a child's chart. Beyond being an astrologer, I've been a certified parenting instructor and facilitator of resiliency in children and adults since 2001. So I did a lot of parenting instruction, about 14 years worth. And even before that, I was very interested in the astrology of children because I was a young mama when I came to astrology, or it threw itself at me because I was skeptical, highly skeptical. But I wanted to be a really good mom. And I didn't want to repeat family patterns. And when you're a cycle breaker, you know. And I looked at my daughter's chart and she was 2. I looked at her chart and I was like, oh, I am a really central figure in her life. Like mamas always are, but it was extra. And I was like, wow, I could be like the biggest, scariest person in her life, or I'm going to be this goddess like thing. I'll always be larger than life in her eyes. I've got to get my shit together. I can't be reactive. I can't yell so much. I can't be triggered all the time. In my healing journey, which I was already on, I doubled down because I realized how much of my emotions impacted her, which we don't really, especially it was the 90s. We think a lot more about these things now, but it wasn't really something that was thought of back in the 90s, nor was it supported much. And then in 2001, I met H. Stephen Glenn, PhD. I had to take his training to be a volunteer at the Family Resource Center I was volunteering at. And within 3 sessions of his course, I was like, okay, how do I get certified? Because this is information that can change the world. And so bringing it all together, because remember, astrology is a framework and it is informed by the astrologer's knowledge base. So if you have special interests and you want to study astrology, don't think you can't study it all, because you'll find a way to put it into interpretations. So this is a passion of mine, to help people support their kids, because I believe every child deserves to be loved and supported in ways that are easy to receive. And a lot of times, and I did this too, parents are like, I'm going to give my kids what I didn't have, but that may not be what they need. So, just because you wanted a Barbie dream house doesn't mean that's what your little one, and that's a superficial thing, but it can represent a lot of other things. So they may want a baseball bat or their own toolkit, or they might like video games, or, they may need to be supported in other ways. And so that's stuff we're going to be talking about in the lecture series. Patrons, hold tight. This week you'll be getting your discount to join in depending on your tier. I'll put the link so you can check it out on the website. Always make sure you click those titles on the classes, because there's a full description in there. And then the business class, making moves by the moon, using and leveraging lunar transits to maximize your flow with business. Again, there's a couple of things you're going to need to get a lot out of this class. One, you want to have a good birth chart. If you don't know what time you were born, that's not going to help you. You can book a rectification with Susie, but you need to have a birth chart. So, and you need to be able to kind of understand this. I'm not teaching beginning astrology. I'm not going to walk you through the symbols. We're going to be looking at the moon as it travels around your chart every single month. I'm not so much looking at phases. I focus more, other than, there's 8 phases, and they do play a role. I'm not going to say they're not important, but in my experience in tracking lunar transits, and that's something I've done for 30 years, the sign in the houses of their activations. And so when you have a business, knowing how to look at what's coming up so you can manage your own energy. Okay. And so it's a way to design your workflow in a way that maximizes your time and energy. You will avoid losses in lots of ways, whether it's lost time or money. You'll be able to know when it's a good time to dig in and grind, and a time to take off and relax a little bit, or work on something that requires a little less effort, like physical effort or mental effort, because we all ebb and flow, and you can't go full speed ahead all the time and not burn out. So this is a great tool. It's also good for looking like, oh, that's a money day, or this is a day to launch, because so many times people are trying to figure it out. I don't pull electional astrology charts so much, not really, but I do look at the lunar transits. Is this a good time for me energetically to do this? And not just because I'm a Cancer. Okay. There's everybody has all 12 signs, and the moon impacts every single being on the planet and the planet itself. So this class is amazing, and it has an add-on feature, because I talked about opening up my books. It has an add-on feature that if you want me to do a 3-month plan with you, You can book an hour session with me, but you can't do it if you're not taking the class. So you can't just automatically, I have to approve those bookings, because if I see you're not in my class and you're just trying to sneak in, it's going to be a no. This is only for people who are taking the class, because I'm doing it for you, not to relieve you of responsibility for doing your observations, but just to get you your pump primed. And yes, it is an extra. We do have a group that everybody will be able to be in, and you'll have access to this, for the next year, of the material, the videos. Okay. So that's a 6-hour workshop, and it's going to be very, very worth it. It's a method I love teaching. Some of you old listeners or patrons would remember Living by Luna. I will bring that back. I just wanted to specify this one a little bit more for the business side of things, because as we move through the end of 2025 and into 2026, yes, things get a little interesting economically, but it doesn't mean you can't do well. Understanding the rhythms of life is going to help you avoid big losses and be able to maximize your efforts, get some return on effort, especially if you're a coach, a consultant, a service provider, or a small brick and mortar. If you have more than 500 employees, this is probably not the class for you, or we would be talking about different things in that case. So this is more for people who have either they're solopreneurs, they're creative entrepreneurs, or they really have like less than 20 employees. That's how we work there, and that would include volunteers. Alrighty, let's do the Astrologers Roundtable. I've done my spiel enough, because I know I haven't taught a lot except in July, and my bookings have been closed. But October, I may open up some year aheads. We'll see. I'm toying with it. We'll see how I feel while I'm teaching. Speaking of understanding our energy levels, but that's why we're doing the Astrologers Roundtable, so you can get to know the astrologers at Woke Astrology. In this segment of the Astrologers Roundtable, I asked the astrologers how they support their clients in making decisions. Dun, 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 dun. Welcome back to another episode of the Astrologers Roundtable.
Hey.
We need kazoos. Right? Yeah, get some fanfare going. Alrighty, we're back with the Woke Astrology crew. We've got Shelby, Damien, and Susie. And today's topic is how we help clients make decisions and look at timing. Because yes, there's technique, but each one of us has a little different style. And we haven't really talked about it, but I know, because you're all different personalities and all technically very good. Who wants to go first? How do you help your clients work through those sometimes big decisions?
A couple of the clients that I have worked with, they were going through some, like, when it comes to like life changes, like somebody was like, I'm going back to school for the first time in like a very long time, like years and years. And they're like, I needed to know. And so when you look at the person, it's like, how is this person's nervous system sort of like, do you need to be more present with them, or do you need to talk with them? It's like, in the particular case, there was some Virgo placements, and I'm like, they need details. They really need details. So I'm like, we're going to go through the transits. Here's a date. Here's a time. Here's what's potentials of what's happening in this area. Here's this and this and this. And I've walked them through their first couple of months of going back to school, which was probably something that was on their mind, because they were taking something that they were naturally, based on their chart, geared for. And I had called it and I said, hey, like, I see this in your chart. And they're like, yeah, can I tell you what I'm going back to school for? I'm like, yeah, totally. And it was like, without, not blowing confidentiality
Right, that's
or
great.
anything. But, and so in that particular case, you really look at the chart and see, what do they need, or do you need to listen more in some cases when you're going through it with them? So that's been a little bit of my experience. So I'll pass the baton to somebody else.
Who's next?
I would say the thing I find interesting is I will go look at the transits and the client will start talking, and the transits are pretty much already reflecting what that client was talking about. So it's interesting seeing that they're already on that path. And it's nice to reaffirm with like the return charts. And the way I like to do it, I like to see what that client's Mercury is, because that's going to be the best way to see how they process information or the best way they're going to receive that information. And I'm a Virgo Mercury, so I like to keep things practical. I like to start small or do small building blocks, because I know that things can feel really intimidating when you're going and making a big decision. And sometimes people just need that push. Like sometimes people just need like that cheerleader or somebody to be like, hey, like you got this. Like I think you have a really good idea in place, or I think you have a lot of ambition or passion towards XYZ, like whatever it may be. So I like trying to give like bite-sized details, or at least a plan of like, okay, well, the fall is going to look a bit like this. The winter is going to look a bit like this. I'm only mentioning that because it's September right now. So that's just kind of a lot of looking towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
But I really try to have the person not be intimidated by what they're trying to do. And then when I let people talk as well, or we kind of soundboard and back and forth, I want to try to help people reach conclusions themselves as well, because sometimes people talk themselves into the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good coaching technique. Yeah.
That was the help from your mystery school, though, actually. Like
those
the
powerful
open-ended
questions,
questions.
right? Those are my top coaching questions. Like people pay money for lists of questions like that, for real. But those are my top powerful questions.
At the end of the day, I just want people to feel like excited afterwards and be like, all right, I got this. I'm going to go kick some ass now.
I love that. Yeah, empowered with the decisions. What about you, Suze?
It's interesting because sometimes those big life changes are not going to be the fun, good ones. So, of course, I'm going to take in the whole of the chart. I'm going to look at how somebody is able to receive information, and then we're going to test the temperature. Because we predict in the context, and it is never my job to show my prowess by predicting something that somebody is not either emotionally, mentally, or possibly financially feeling supported to have to incur at in a near proximity, like in a so there's the great times where I have this OG client and we could see doing their soul return back in 2024, but that there was a good chance to purchase a house. But it was the transits matter. So like there was a window because of a Venus Mercury retrograde and a whole bunch of other stuff happening with their chart. There was like a window. So that was lovely. Okay, if we have somebody that's going to lose their job and we have to talk about how the job market is maybe changing, and they're not going to possibly be able to procure the next position the way they did 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. Like, so it's that stuff, but like getting, helping that client pick the house and all the other stuff. Those are fun. Seeing life changes. I'm never going to trigger somebody, and I never want anyone to avoid getting a reading because somebody's sick in their life or their relationship is having issues and they want answers. And sometimes navigating that situation is about learning how the other one communicates, and that being able to be using astrology to repair something that feels life-changing or creates a sense of dread, meeting it with the different the things that we all kind of study in, so that we're also being compassionate during that life change.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down, because on social media especially, but even people who read getting clients off social media often are very prescriptive or incite a lot of fear to keep people coming to them. So like saying this transit will always lead in divorce, or this one, somebody's gonna die.
My God.
May I
Yeah.
share? I just did a session for a client that's been with me 4 years and in my community. Love this. Just sweet. Going through their first Saturn return. Has come to me a million times. I've got great reviews from them. They finally made this appointment and they said, I was not going to make the appointment because I was told that every Saturn return, somebody dies.
Oh my God.
No. Who does that?
And I said,
Astrologers.
yeah,
Ugh.
Actually,
it was somebody on TikTok. And so she was almost in tears. Her grandmother is not well. And I was like, my love, I do this. I want you to think about the sheer volume. That is not a common thread. You may have had someone who experienced their Saturn return during certain transits in 2020 that were predicted for years by professional astrologers that we would have, mass casualty through illness, through whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they, in their life, personally experienced and watched other people who also happened coincidentally, not for, it wasn't causality, that yes, was there a lot of loss in 2020? Yes. Were there also people having their Saturn returns in 2020? Of course there were.
Yeah.
That one thing is not the other. She was in tears.
Oh.
And I was just like, yeah, I have an 8th house Saturn and I can have like, yeah, no, I mean, that's not a thing. That is absolutely not a thing. But here's this person that, you trust me, knows me, has come for a million appointments, is part of the community. It's still that little fear trigger, especially when we have, so a lot of times I just want to say that having that appointment won't bring you bad news. It will help you regulate. It will probably take the fear out of whatever you think it is. And so many times they're like, well, I know this happens. Like, no, those are not related at all. Just like you said, the eclipse energy isn't responsible for the chaos right now.
No, and it's not responsible for Charlie Kirk's death.
That's
the singular
eclipses only affect where it's visible.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's, in this case, it was a full moon.
Full moon. And it was a full moon still. And the moon was exactly opposite Mars. So
yeah,
but there were a lot of things that happened on a singular day. It wasn't just those things. So you can't, Susie made a very good point, it's not causality.
No.
So.
No, and somebody who's got a little bit, Laurie and I think probably befriended each other in the DMs over this, is that I love the enthusiasm when somebody's learning astrology. I do.
Yeah.
Blessed be, right? Sure, great. But also the responsibility you have, not with your full chest, go online when you only have, a little bit of information is dangerous.
Nope.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And so Saturn returns, especially nowadays, don't have to, right?
Doesn't have to be scary.
No.
Especially because your parents, if you're having your Saturn return now, and we also had this beautiful conversation about how her and her mom are breaking the cycle, right?
Yeah.
Where the parents before that couldn't admit that anything was done wrong as a parent because that was blaspheme. That was just not socially acceptable. And so, but we don't
was a lot
have that
to
now.
live with. And they didn't have psychological support. So
exactly. And if you're having your Saturn return now, you probably have a higher likelihood that your parents wanted you to self-actualize. Your parents wanted you to celebrate yourself as an individual and not lump parent you or whatever it is, So, but those big moments, listen, it helps. Like, not all relationships make it, right? Let's have a real conversation. If there is somebody who's like gonna come to you and say, I don't know how this is working out here, we can always say to them, how can I best support you through this? And where are you at? Because that where are you at in your attachment to who you are in the mirror of the relationship, right? Because it's not even about your attachment to that person. What is your attachment to this thing, this job, this relationship, this whatever, that might be liberating you.
Right.
Right. And what is the frame of mind? Are we looking at this as a loss or liberation? And that reframing can really help those big moments.
Yeah.
And having the tools to deal with it. Like, okay, I'm not just going to tell you something bad's going to happen to you. I'm going to give you the tools.
Yep. I was about to say, we show you what's in your chart and we equip you with your chart and show you how to use your natural abilities that are already there. And we shine a light on that and go, this is how you flow. And as long as you follow this, your North Star, so to speak, you'll get there.
It's like your toolkit.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, like, on that subject of Saturn returns as well, even if it is a Saturn return where you do have to make a tougher decision, usually it's a good, like, growth point or something that may really help solidify you in some kind of a way. And it's almost like that journey into a version of adulthood, like another level.
That's what it
is. It really is a level up.
It's the crystallizer.
So sometimes there's some tough things that happen with it. Again, like if you're in my generation, you had Pluto at the Saturn return.
With Jupiter.
It's a tough decision.
So
Yeah,
crazy.
there was the Jupiter there too. And then my moon was by the Saturn and then all of that. So like sometimes it can feel messy like in the moment. And astrology is there to really help you navigate through those things. And for you to realize that like it doesn't, whatever the pop astrologer says, it does not matter. It does not mean someone's going to pass away or you're going to lose something or some horrific thing is going to happen. When you think of a Saturn return, think about one big level up because really it is. Saturn is here to teach you.
And if you have an 8th house Saturn return, like Susie, you have an 8th house Saturn, right?
I'll have my second in a couple of years.
Ooh,
see, this is about you're not going to die. You're going to transform.
Yeah, no, but scaring people into thinking somebody that they very close to them
they love
die. That's what they were told.
A lot.
What was that conflation with the 8th house death and then like 8th
they
house
didn't even have an 8th house
death. They often say it for Saturn returns. Right. I've heard that. And
8th house is transformation.
You say straight up, you can lose people during a Saturn return. Common themes during a Saturn return
messed up
are startings and endings. Okay, because it's the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. Sometimes it is an end of a relationship in some way and a beginning of a new one. Sometimes, and that could be a pregnancy.
Saturn, my daughter has the same exact Saturn degree as me. She's my Saturn return baby.
Yeah, how funny.
Yep.
And
we're both exactly the same degree. I literally had her on I gave birth on my Saturn return.
There you go. That's a classic example.
People get married, people get divorced.
I mean, that's the opposite of death.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of astrology that happens all at the same.
We'll have different charts and the Saturn is going to aspect different things as well. Like astrology is just so complex and nuanced. You can't do a cookie cutter. This is black, this is white, this is gray, this is red, this is blue, it's a whole amalgamation. It's all coalescing together.
So deep breaths.
Yeah.
Deep breaths when it comes to that. Don't stress.
Those tertiary and outer planet transits can really get people scared because of the misinformation.
Actually, that reminds me, there was a outer planet transit that I saw for somebody, and I was actually really excited for that person because I could tell that it was going to be something that was going to be like a level up. And I think when you frame it more as like, okay, how can I level up from this thing, as opposed to how can I like be afraid of it or fear it or feel like you need to hide from it.
Yeah.
Like, so it'll be okay.
Yeah, talking about outer planets, I was working with a client who has a Uranus opposition coming up in the next few years, and I'm like, oh, the shackles are coming off. This is going to be a great time, and you're going to grow into what you're doing. I also said you will be kicked from the nest, FYI. So, prepare for that. What an exciting time for you. You're going to be finally doing the thing that you've been doing that you really want to be doing instead of what you're currently doing right now. We were focused on career for this particular reading, and I'm like, I know they were a little bit nervous because the job market is unstable and their current employment is a little bit precarious because their immediate boss just got fired as soon as they got the job. And then there was a bunch of things that were happening. And I said, all this is going to inform you towards where you will be going. Like this is the galvanizing events that are going to guide you into your most, like the vocation that you are going to do. And I'm so excited for you. I know it seems bumpy right now, but in hindsight, you'll be like, it all made sense. So,
right. I
yeah.
had a client a couple of years ago who was in a very hostile work environment, but had support outside of immediate supervision within the corporation. And they were higher ups and they liked her and they were giving her fairly good reviews, but it was the immediate supervisor and it was untenable and she wanted to quit. And I was looking at her transits and I'm like, I don't think you have to quit. I want you to hold on. If it's not better in 3 months, you can apply for other stuff in the meantime. I always suggest it's good to interview for jobs, even if you're not wanting to take it, because it keeps you fresh, right? And it lets you know, like you might get offered something, maybe you don't want to take it, but it feels good to know you're employable, right? So that's just good practice, best practices, right? And sure enough, their supervisor got fired and she got their job. But that was a fun feedback. Let us know when that stuff happens.
Please do.
Definitely.
We love those. We live for the email.
We never get tired about being right about awesome things.
Oh my God, you were right.
We love that.
Back when I was like practicing transits and like practicing birth chart reading, I practiced on one of my friends and I was looking at her chart and I noticed second house and sixth house and things going on. And I'm like, you should just start kind of casually job hunting because I think later on you're going to feel like you might either need a job or there might be some kind of job opportunity happening. And not even a month later, she's like, oh my God, I just got this really good job. You totally predicted it. You called it. So like, and she's still like kind of gushes about it too, because she like loves that job so much now. So like, I was happy I was able to point that out to her and at least give the push of like, hey, if you want to just like look around and follow your whimsy on this, like I encourage it, because I try to not like tell people what to do per se or to order them around. It's still up to you or anyone I'm reading for, like at the end of the day, like what you do with the information that we give you. But yeah, I like to give that little nudge of encouragement, like, no, you have a good idea, actually. Keep going with that. You got something going on there.
I love what you said, Shelby, about following your whimsy a bit. I think we all need to, in general, follow our whimsy at this point.
Aren't they amazing? I absolutely adore every single one of them and their commitment to being of service and really helping people navigate these very interesting times and, make the moves they need to make in life and career and business. So if you're curious about how you can book, it's really easy. You can go into the show notes, look at where it says book a reading, and there's a link to wokeastrology.com/book-online. And then you'll see the list of readings. Remember, don't book with me. I only have one thing up, and it's only for people in the class. If you're a patron, your discounts are coming out from my classes and Susie's class. Don't forget, you can book Susie's class, Trauma-Informed Tarot, which is great. I've looked over her curriculum. It's really good. I think you're going to love it if you've been interested in tarot. If you are looking at taking my classes and you're a patron, hold on. Your discount's coming soon. But remember, if you're a patron at the Awake Space, all patrons at the supporting levels, $5 and up, you save 40% on 1 hour reading, except with me, because that's for the class. But a reading with Susie, Damien, or Shelby, hell of a deal. Okay, we also have Mars and Scorpio coming up on the 22nd before the new moon. Yeah. So the 21st is probably going to be a banger day because Mars will be at 29 degrees of Libra. So let's talk about what's happening on the 21st and the 22nd, because Monday's podcast comes out on the 22nd next week when Mars will have moved into Scorpio ahead of the new moon, which is at 29 degrees of Virgo. So here's the deal with degrees. Each degree does not have a divinatory meaning. I'm not a big fan of degree theory. Fight me. But anyway, but what we do know is when a planet is at the 29th degree, it is the full maturity of the sign. It has built the momentum. Okay, if you're in the Patreon, I did a video about what happens as the planet moves through the sign. So it starts at the top of the hill as a little snowball at 0 degrees, and it can kind of go any direction. So there's a little bit of like round and round she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. The direction that starts, okay, so whether it's going left, right, down the center, like which way is it expressing in the sign, we figure that out pretty quick in the early degrees, and then it builds momentum as it goes downhill. It gains in power. Okay, momentum. It gets power behind it. And at 29 degrees, it is at the full maturity of the expression of Mars in that sign as it shows its direction in the earlier degrees. So it's been a little bit spicy with Mars and Libra this time. At 29 degrees, new moon with an eclipse. But it's spicy meatballs. So the 21st, is going to be insightful. So Mars will hit Scorpio close to midnight on the West Coast. So it'll be the 22nd on the East Coast. And so again, when we're interpreting mundane, we do use common sense. Okay, so there's some kind of action happening. I would say Eastern Europe. Mars and Jupiter are still square. It's a separating square. But that's a lot of action, and it's political ideology. I'm going to say there's probably more protests throughout the EU with the right and the left clashing. The right's going to start to lose ground, though, because I think as they start to get more and more egregious in their actions, or even their rhetoric is going to be seen as more dangerous, more and more people are going to stand up and counter that in the civilian populations. But I also think there may be some missiles happening between Poland and Russia, Ukraine and Russia. Of course, that conflict is ongoing. But I think things might spill over. And people are going to blame the eclipse. That it will not be the solar eclipse at cause for that. I wouldn't give causality to that. It is literally planets changing signs, a very strong new moon. Like, even if there wasn't an eclipse, having two new moons in the same sign is usually an emphasis. And we're going to look at systems, rules, and laws with that. So we'll see what happens. It could also be something in the Middle East involving Israel, Iran, the GCC states like Saudi, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait. Iraq isn't in the GCC, but Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, that whole region, they too could see some things happen. Anyway, if you want to know what's up in the headlines, you can check it out. I'll go through what I expect to happen with Mars in Scorpio in a patron-only podcast. It's like your patron-only podcast could end up to be like 3 freaking hours. I'm just going to break it up into topics. We've got the new moon, we've got the eclipse, we've got and yes, they're one and the same, but they're treated separately depending on visibility. And that is traditional astrology. You know, the greatest amount of research and math done around eclipses was done during the medieval period, and it's the where we have the foundations of interpretation for that, and that includes for personal use. I mean, really, it really tends to impact world leaders more than it tends to impact us as individuals. Had that lunar eclipse been visible in the United States, we would have seen something closer to what is going on in Europe or in Nepal, right? And we were spared that for now. Anyway, so if you want to know what's in the headlines, you can head over and join the Patreon as a supporting member. Again, membership starts at $5 and goes up to $33, depending on how deep you want to dive into those tiers. Use a browser and not an iOS device to save 30%, because then it's $7.50 a month with the iOS surcharge. Nothing we can do to get around that. If you want to join for the year, you save 25%, but that is only for brand new members. If you sign up with your email address that you used to have on Patreon, you'll only get like 15% off the year. So if you want to get that 25% off the year, you have to use a new account. Okay. Alrighty. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week. I'll have you ready for we'll be getting ready for October.